Am I the a-hole for breaking my promise to my stepkids and abandoning and traumatizing them because I did not want to parent them anymore? I met Will when I was 22. Will was 29, with 2 kids and had newly been widowed. We had a whirlwind courtship where he introduced me to the kids and got me involved in their lives very early, first few days after I met him. Will said really quickly he was sure I was the one, not only for himself but also for his kids, that we would have an incredible, happy family life. We got married when I was 23. Will was 30, and his kids were 8 and 6. Our wedding ceremony also included me and the kids making promises to each other, which was Will's idea. Soon after, Will shoved all the childcare onto me. I wasn't the stay-at-home spouse. I worked full-time and always have, but he always had reasons for me to do the childcare. Him being sore from doing a physical job, me being better at it since I babysat kids this age in the past and he never had, or girl stuff for his daughter, or cooking or anything. He always had some reason, and it ended up always on me. He started playing video games and relaxing from getting home until bedtime, because he was tired and he was bringing in the money and keeping the roof over everyone's heads, though that wasn't really true. He said he deserved to relax. Then he went out with his friends, or brought them back to drink beer and watch loud TV. Then he developed a major attitude with me and encouraged same to kids. They found it funny. He started openly disrespecting me and encouraged them to. He was the ultimate fun dad, and I got put in the role of the mean witch. Sometimes they all ganged up on me and mocked me, but also all expected me to serve them and constantly be jumping up to care for them. By the end of the first year, I realized the marriage was a big mistake, but felt guilty leaving because of my promises to the kids. Another year went by, and I realized that no matter how I tried, and how I knew they were only kids and didn't really blame them, I genuinely hated both of the kids. And I could not lie to myself anymore and pretend that I loved them. I did not, and I never would. One day, I just walked out, packed up everything of mine and moved out while nobody was at home. I left a note explaining it wasn't working and saying goodbye. That was the end. Cue a crap storm for my ex and a bitter divorce. But we both walked away with what we went into the marriage with, not much for either of us. I had never legally adopted the kids, so I had no rights nor responsibilities about them, and I never reached out to any of them again. Honestly, I was just overjoyed to be rid of all of them. 15 years have gone by, and that seems like a lifetime ago, or another person's life, but I'm still in my 30s. I was recently shocked to get a message from Tamara, Will's daughter, now 25. Tamara said I betrayed and traumatized her for life for abandoning them after my promises to them. She said I had a responsibility to never leave no matter what. I know she remembers the horrible way she treated me though. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hall. There is never a responsibility to never leave. That is ridiculous. Sure, a 10-year-old may reasonably think so, but a 25-year-old should know better. Agreed. I was bitter when my mother left and divorced my stepdad when I was 10. As an adult, I realized that he was a guy who refused to get a job and just sat around the house all day. But he would leave for work in the morning as I was getting ready for school to keep up appearances. The father probably brainwashed the kids with made-up stuff. Brainwashed or not, this woman is 25, not 15. She should have enough perspective to realize that the fault lies completely with the father. At some point, a person has to look inward and seek help for their trauma, not inflict it on others. To seek out a person you haven't seen 15 years just to send them a nasty email saying Opie should have stayed in a horrible relationship for 10 to 12 years, purely for this woman's benefit? That is extremely selfish and cruel. Not today, Hall. Your husband didn't want a wife. He chose a younger woman and whisked her off her feet to be his live-in maid, nanny, and cook. He knew what he was doing when he asked you to make that promise to the kids, emotionally manipulating you into staying even though he treated you like crap. It's sad that the children lost their mother, but their father encouraging them to treat you like the evil stepmom was cruel to both you and them. Clearly, the behavior he showed continued after left. Eddie kept telling Tamara and her brother how awful you were. You got yourself out of there. Well done for being strong and wise enough to do so. Many people don't have the strength to do that. And you need to stay out of there, Opie. Not your circus, not your monkeys. You made a promise, but a promise is made with agreement/conditions usually from both parties. You didn't hold up your end because they were relentless with their bullying. Not they, Olubi. Messaged her back and explained it was a toxic marriage, that their dad set you up to be the family punching bag and nanny, that he wasn't looking for love or a partner, but a doormat, and he encouraged you kids to do the same. Tell her their hang-ups are their own, and then say that you are done with that chapter of your life, and will never again allow their father to drag your life down. Not today, Ho. Those kids have been fed lies and delusions about what the marriage was like. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for digging my heels in with my fiancé concerning Surname? My fiancé, 27 female and I, 30 male, are getting married next year. I've pretty much let her run the show when it comes to the wedding and reception. Her last name is from her biological father who left when she was 2. Her mother remarried, and she has said for years that she can't wait to get married to change it. For 6 years, I've heard about what a piece of garbage this guy is. I am the last male to carry my name, and there are only 4 people with a name. So it's always been important to me to pass it on to my children. She wants to get married in a Catholic church. I'm not Catholic, but it means a lot to her, so I'm in the process of converting. She wanted to be close to her mom and sister, so I left a job I loved, found a new job, and we moved 4 hours away from my family to be closer to them. Her sister is a recovering alcoholic, so we don't keep liquor in our apartment despite that I like to have a beer after work. I've made many changes to accommodate her. She's acknowledged it, and I always respond that all I care about is passing my name on. And she responds with a number of days until our wedding. Shortly after we arrived, Dad contacted her out of the blue. He heard from relatives she was getting married and decided it was the perfect time to reconnect. All of a sudden, and now hear what a wonderful guy Paul is. How hard he's trying and how wonderful it is that he's back. Often, I get home from work and she's gone, only to arrive home past midnight after being out with Paul and her half-siblings. I hate that I don't see her as much, but I know how much it means to her to have a relationship with him. At the same time, after years of hearing her trash him, I'm not even allowed to think bad thoughts about him. She's planning on having him walk her down the aisle, which I don't think is appropriate, but it's her decision. This weekend was the bombshell. She told me that her father brought up the importance of their name, that she's decided to keep it. This stung very badly. I replied that it was her choice. I just wanted to pass my name down. She smiled uncomfortably and informed me that she wanted the first boy to carry her name because it would mean so much to Daddy. I told her that is not happening. She suggested that we hyphenate as a compromise. I told her that there was no negotiation, that I had one thing that was important to me. I'd moved heaven and earth to give her what she needed and everything else, but I wouldn't budge an inch on this. She told me I was being unreasonable. I responded that I've been in her life longer than he has. I'd ask her who it was she was trying to start a life with, me or him. She started crying and accused me of being jealous of her relationship with her father. My parents and her mom and stepdad agree with me and think she's allowing Paul to influence her. Her sister thinks I was an A for asking that question and refusing to compromise. Not today, Hall. Not gonna read other comments. Staying out till midnight with your mostly estranged father after years of hating him is also freaking weird. You are not the a-hole, but unfortunately you also can't force her to change her name. Use this as a time to evaluate your relationship. Perhaps couples counseling would be a good idea before saying your I do's. Good luck. Clarification. Well, I would love if she took it, and it hurt to know she's decided not to after 6 years of saying she wanted to change her name. I've never tried to force it. I accepted it as her decision. I only put my foot down when it came to our future children. Then you deserve better. She changed the game at the last minute. Info. What kind of compromises has she made for you? What kind of changes has she made for you? Honestly, she hasn't had to make any. Believe it or not, 90% of things were in complete agreement. The things I've compromised on are things that I was willing to do to make her life easier. She wanted to live closer to her family. My parents are retiring within 10 years and likely leaving that area. So staying there didn't make a lot of sense other than I really liked my job and the people I worked with. I don't hate my current job, but it's not the same. I love the girl. The girl wants to live here. I go with the girl. I felt like taking my name was equivalent because while it's a big change, she knew it was important to me. So as of now, she's made no compromises or changes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for publicly telling my stepdad to buzz off after he complained about being excluded from the speech I wrote for my brother's funeral? My stepdad is an attention-seeking person. Did I say attention-seeking? As the saying goes, he is the bride/groom at every wedding and a corpse at every funeral. Can't help himself and has no issues showing how much he craves for attention. I've never been on good terms with him. He sold my childhood home and threw away stuff Dad left for me and my brother, who is 19. He convinced Mom to revoke my college fund and use it to renovate their new house, resulting in me moving out at 17. I'm now 26. My brother was still living with them when he passed. He suffered from physical/mental conditions that my stepdad called fake. My brother was diagnosed with stomach illness that landed him at the hospital a few times. But my stepdad insisted he was faking it to get attention, and so didn't help with money, so Mom ended up selling jewelry to help my brother. Then he passed away 2 months later. The funeral was last week. I was so devastated because I've always been close with my brother and had plans to do so much in the future. But going by Uncle's advice, I decided to write a speech, sort of like a goodbye letter to my brother as a closure for me, because I had so much to say but so little time. I gave the speech at the funeral. These moments felt long and pretty heavy. I went back to sit and had people pat on my shoulder trying to comfort me. But my stepdad approached me and openly asked why I didn't mention him anywhere in my long, detailed speech. I was speechless and enraged by his offending question that I literally said, "I don't know, because you're not the one who's dead?" He replied that, technically, the funeral is for the living. Then casually went on about how I should have mentioned some of the impact/benefits he had on me and my brother when he came into our life. I harshly reminded him how my mom started selling her jewelry to pay for my brother's medication, while all he did was claim my brother was faking being sick to get attention, called him pathetic to want more attention at the funeral than a departed person, and loudly told him to F off with his pathetic, attention-seeking bullcrap. He looked shocked and saw a number of guests looking at him awkwardly. He argued that I was being utterly disrespectful of him, and that he was generous enough to consider getting my brother a decent headstone, but it wasn't his fault that I refused to have his name on it. My brother and I never changed our last name, and my stepdad somehow wanted his name on my brother's headstone, otherwise he wouldn't pay for it. It turned into an argument, and I demanded to leave and got others involved. He left eventually, but kept telling my whole family about me making a scene and humiliating him out of old spite, and that I was inconsiderate enough of my brother to cause a scene at his funeral, basically turning the family against me. He wants at least a written apology so we could move past this, but I refuse to give him one. Mom wants me to do it as soon as possible. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole in any way, shape, or form. I'm so sorry for the loss of your brother. I have no problem cutting contact with both your stepfather and mother. Your mother allowed your college fund to be revoked? She might as well be dead to me if I was in Opie's position. Not the a-hole. Jesus. Why is your mom with someone who's so cruel to her children? And he wants a written apology? I vote for crapping on his front step and telling him that's all the apology he'll ever see from you. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend that her getting treated like a doormat is her choice and that I won't do the same? My 27 female partner, Sam, 32 male, and I have been together for about 3 years. Our relationship has always been a little odd from the outside. Sam works 80+ hours a week as a lawyer at a large firm, while I work as a policy analyst for the government at a nice 37.5 hours a week in comparison. Before we dated, he told me that he wants to work up to being a partner and that would require long hours. I told him that I prioritize work-life balance, even if it means a lower salary. We agreed to date, knowing this about each other. My best friend, Vicky, 27 female, and her boyfriend started dating our first year of uni and have a rocky relationship. The boyfriend cheated on her in our last year of uni and has since been caught cheating again twice. Vicky, against my advice, has chosen to stay with him. Sam recently got a promotion and, as part of the deal, was assigned an assistant. When I met her, I kind of got a vibe that she was crushing on Sam. She was really flirty and very attentive to Sam, which he pointed out to me first. He said that he'd still keep her on as assistant, but he would make sure nothing got out of hand. I wasn't concerned, because I've never had a reason to worry that he would cheat on me. One night, Vicky and I got dinner and later decided to go back to my place. Sam's office is in between the restaurants we were at in my apartment building. so I offered to go drop off some food for him. He asked Vicky if it was okay if we stopped, and she agreed. When we got to his floor, he was working in a glass-paneled room alone with his assistant. I didn't think much of it, dropped off the food and left. I also want to add that there were lots of other people in the office. As soon as we left, Vicky asked if that was the assistant that I thought had a crush on Sam. I said yes, that they often work late together. She got angry at me, saying that I was treating this like a joke, and that if I want to keep my man, I have to stake my claim, or something. I explained to her that I wasn't worried that he would cheat and that I trusted him. Vicky told me that she was certain that he was cheating and that I should force him to ask for a different assistant. I was getting kind of annoyed, but it got worse when she said, amongst other things, that Sam knows he can't cheat on me and I'd let him because he makes more money than me, so he doesn't need to respect me because he pays more. Sam's salary is around 3 times mine, although I have an okay salary myself, $85,000, and don't need him for money. We split bills percentage-wise, so I pay less than he does, but it's equitable and we agreed on it. I told Vicky that just because she's okay being treated like a doormat doesn't mean I am. And that if Sam cheated on me, I would leave him as respect is essential in a relationship. I also said that she had no place offering relationship advice considering her boyfriend is a serial cheater, and they fought all the time. And that if she wanted to keep complaining to me, I should start charging her. It was mean, and I feel really bad about it now. And she hasn't talked to me since. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She's projecting. And she insisted on being rude while refusing to drop it when you disagreed politely the first time. Exactly this. She can't trust her partner because he had cheated many times, and therefore doesn't understand that other people can have trusting relationships. Not the a-hole. Congratulations for being in a mature relationship where you aren't paranoid about your significant other banging everything in sight. That's a great place to be, and you weren't wrong to tell her to cut the analysis. She stepped way over the line. That being said, might not hurt to reach out and try to soften what you said. Unfortunately, sometimes the truth hurts, and you put it on her pretty good. Not the a-hole. How someone like that could dish out any kind of relationship advice, let alone advice about cheating, absolutely baffles me. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for leaving in an Uber after my fiancé caused a scene at a restaurant? I, female 28, been with my fiancé, male 32, for 3 years. We got engaged in April. He is a doctor and I'm a teacher. He's doing okay financially, but I noticed his strange behavior with money. I don't know what to call this, but he has an argumentative personality. Whenever he buys something online or from the shop, he tried to haggle over the price, complaining about how everything is expensive and overpriced. He does this all the time. I hated going out to shop with him as he tried to argue constantly. That made me feel awful, especially since he has enough money to pay, and it's ridiculous. He used to pick up fights with his previous landlords. So far, he moved into 2 different apartments claiming the landlords were the problem, not him. Having lived with him and seen how he stalls with the rent, I knew he was the problem. He wanted us to go to a new restaurant and have dinner. I agreed and went shopping alone and got myself a nice dress since I don't have many. He insisted on finding out how much I paid and threw a fit when I told him the price, saying I should have let him come with me and that I could have gotten it way cheaper. This really annoyed me. It's just a dress, no big deal. But he made me feel guilty for paying for it. I was in a bad mood already. He decided to order a meal from the menu even though he complained about the price. I told him he could pick something else, but he insisted and said he'd figure a way to discuss the price. When the waiter brought him the bill, instead of paying, my fiancé started arguing how the meal was overpriced and wanted to negotiate, saying he won't be paying that much because he thought it was too expensive. He berated the waiter for not accepting the price he wanted to pay. I told him I'd help with payment, no problem, but he was offended, saying he'd never allow it. I was embarrassed since everyone was watching my fiancé telling the waiter he might be trying to keep the money for himself. The manager got involved, and we had to wait for 30 minutes before he showed up since my fiancé refused to pay and get it over with. After arguing loudly, the manager took the money my fiancé gave him, and he ended up getting us kicked out while people were watching. I felt awful. This was so humiliating. I yelled at him and refused to get in the car and instead called an Uber, especially after he acted like he won the argument and had this awful smirk on his face. He said I was overreacting after we spent 45 minutes arguing about a meal, which was rude. I stayed with my mom and couldn't help but cry after this embarrassment. He texted me later telling me how upset he was with me for treating him like this and siding against him. He said I hurt his feelings by leaving like that, completely ignoring the fact that he ruined the night. I refused to apologize after his text, and I couldn't even sleep thinking about it. No, not a cultural thing. I don't know anyone who does what he does. Especially not like this. We're in Europe, and yes, I believe this has to do with how he grew up. His family always struggled with money, and is still struggling. However, this is unacceptable, and he has no respect for other people and thinks they somehow deserve it. It's inappropriate and disrespectful. Now for the top comments. Not Dayhall. This isn't a flea market where you can negotiate prices. He either agrees to pay for the meal he orders or doesn't order it. Price is there, and him ordering and eating isn't some way to leverage that he should pay less. He agreed and ate it. Exactly. Arguing over a meal was so embarrassing and just so wrong and awful. I hated going out with him because of this behavior. It's so exhausting. He knew about the price and yet still ordered a meal thinking he'd negotiate to pay less. Not Dayhall. He is a cheapskate. I say dump him. His behavior is a huge red flag. Is this how you want to live with him? No, I don't want to live like this. This is horrible. His behavior is horrible. I've tried for so long to get him to change this awful habit, but it didn't work. I'm just so tired and can't take it anymore. He thinks he's done nothing wrong. Not Dayhall. I don't know how much redder the flag needs to get for you. I can't believe you still describe this man as your fiancé. You've already wasted 3 years of your life suffering through this crap. I can't believe that you're still willing to sign up for an entire lifetime of this. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my boyfriend move into my new apartment after he made us lose our shared one? Me, 23 female, and my boyfriend, 24 male, got evicted a few months ago. We get along well, and both of us are otherwise very responsible when it comes to work and household chores. The main issue here is, he games a lot, and is very loud when doing so. I tried to talk to him numerous times about how it's not appropriate to yell at the game in the middle of the night, but he never really listened to me. After too many noise complaints, we finally got evicted. During this time, we have lived with a relative, and he has continued to be very loud in front of the computer. Now, I finally found an apartment I can afford, but I told him that I don't want to live with him as long as he keeps this behavior up, and that he will need to find an apartment on his own. I would love to live with him in the future if we ever get a home of our own, as we both dream of living remotely in the future. He thinks it's really shitty of me to decide this over one mistake, but I really don't want to go through this whole apartment searching process if he gets us evicted again, and he really doesn't show any inclination towards changing his behavior in this regard. Most of my friends think I am being unreasonable as well, since it was a one-time thing, but I think getting evicted over noise is a pretty major thing, especially since there was many complaints from the landlord before he kicked us out. Am I the a-hole for not letting him have another chance and forcing him to live on his own? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The problem that led to the eviction was not one mistake, and it wasn't a one-time thing. Otherwise, you guys would not have been evicted. Exactly. Not the a-hole. He needs to change his behavior. He is downplaying what has happened to make you feel guilty. Since he is still really loud, nothing will change. Girl, you are not the a-hole. You aren't his mother, and he isn't a child anymore. If getting evicted doesn't wake him up to his adult reality, he seriously needs to mature the F up. Being evicted can cause housing issues in the future where landlords don't accept you as a tenant, so you're truly best off without him in your living space. Not the a-hole indeed. Sounds like he is a child still. Gaming is fine, but not taking responsibility for your actions and not changing the behavior that caused numerous complaints and finally eviction? That's childish a-hole. Not the a-hole. I'm almost baffled. I'm sure he has lovely qualities but definitely do not build a life, right now, with someone showing this level of immaturity. How long have y'all been together? We have been together for 4 years but have been friends since childhood. He's not only totally cool with getting you guys evicted from your home after plenty of warnings, but he has zero intention of changing the thing that's causing it. He literally doesn't care if he makes you homeless so long as he can do what he wants. At that point, you could have been together 64 years and I'd still tell you that it's not at all okay or normal. You deserve better. Update. Thanks for all the comments. It was made quite clear here that most of you didn't see me as the a-hole here, so I felt comfortable talking to him again about this today with how the two of us should go on from now, and I borrowed some of the points here that I agree with, but really hadn't been able to face on my own. It was a good talk. A lot came up that didn't really know of, and he realized that it's perhaps the best if we live apart for a while, and that he tries therapy to deal with the way he has been feeling for the past year. Hopefully, the heated gamer moments will come to an end in the future so that we actually can share an apartment one day. Jokingly suggested testing his hearing since he still had a hard time realizing how loud he has been, and he wants to try that as well. Laughing my ass off. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for getting rid of my boyfriend's mechanical keyboard? This all started a couple of weeks ago. I've been having a real hard go of it during these COVID times. I lost my job, and the job I did find doesn't give me enough hours to pay for rent, so I was evicted from my old place. My boyfriend of a year plus said that I could come live with him, since his roommate bailed to go live with their parents when all this started, and we were planning on moving in together when both our leases were up, so it all worked out. But my boyfriend considers himself to be a gamer, and he also has a pretty nice side gig as a streamer. Not like a popular streamer, so not making the big bucks, but that's why it was a side gig and not his dedicated profession. And I was never around when he's streaming. But since moving in, all I've been hearing when he's at home and streaming is the constant noise of his mechanical keyboard. It's been honestly giving me huge headache every time he starts playing games or even responding to emails. I've tried sitting him down and saying that the mechanical keyboard has to go, for my own sanity. I've been finding it increasingly harder to focus when he's in the next room clacking away. And if you're not aware, mechanical keyboards are crazy loud. But he just says that I should wear headphones. But I don't want to wear headphones when I'm at home. I hate earbuds, and the over-ear headphones are just not comfortable when lying down. So yesterday, when he left for work, I went over to his gaming setup, disconnected the mechanical keyboard and swapped it with the one I ordered, with my own money, that came in the day before. I placed it in a random Facebook marketplace and instantly got a taker, so I can recoup some of the money I lost. When my boyfriend came back home, I could already tell he was in a bad mood. His job's pretty stressful, he said hi, and we started eating. That I cooked, and after washing dishes, he said he's going to go stream/play games. He went into his room and there was a moment of silence, and he came out and asked what happened to his mechanical keyboard. So I told him the truth and said that I sold it to recoup the loss when I bought the normal keyboard that wouldn't give me headaches. He blew up. I've never seen him so angry. Over a stupid keyboard. He demanded I somehow get it back, and I wasn't willing to message the person who bought it, not like that would do anything anyway, and then he started demanding the money I got for it so he can buy a replacement. I reluctantly handed him the $30 I got, and he said that was not nearly enough. Apparently, his old keyboard was close to $200. Anyways, he's been giving me the cold shoulder, and I'm starting to think I messed up, but it was just a keyboard. Why even bought a keyboard for $200? I'll never know. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Congrats! You're about to get dumped and have nowhere to live, and you deserve it. Seriously, who does that? You literally stole from him. Obviously, you're the a-hole, a massive one. You touch my green switch keys, and we will no longer be friends. Should have been on the street before I had time to file the theft report, which should get filed. I hope he doesn't see an issue with whining about how uncomfortable it is to wear headphones when asked, so her solution is to just unilaterally get rid of something her boyfriend uses to make extra money. You're the a-hole, a thief, and most likely an ex-girlfriend in need of a new apartment. You're the a-hole. So, your partner kindly welcomed you into his home when you lost yours, and in response, you stole and sold his keyboard? Yeah, but she said she cooked. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Those keyboards are expensive, and most of all, you did it without his consent. You know you're the a-hole. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not changing my last name after a divorce? When I, 24 female, married my now ex-husband, 25 male, I took his last name. We have 2 children together, both of which have our last name. We got divorced, and I didn't want to change my name because I happen to like matching my kids, and also this name sounds better than my pre-marriage name. He called me like a month ago to tell me he's getting married to his girlfriend. Awesome. Congrats to them. But then he said she doesn't want to share the last name with me, and he wants me to change it. He even offered to pay the legal fees. My reasons for keeping this name are the same as they were when we originally got divorced. I don't want to change it. I told him no, and he accepted that. But then, his partner called me the next day and literally yelled in my ear about how I'm not entitled to the last name anymore, how it should be hers now, and I need to let go of my attachment to my ex because he totally hates me. Also, she doesn't want her future kids to share a last name with me. So now I've added, because I'm a petty witch, to the reason I don't want to change my name, but that wasn't the original reason. It's just like a bonus? For informational purposes, I hate my ex. He cheated on me and was generally an a-hole. We were married for just over a year. The 2 kids are twins. I am not attached to the name because I am attached to him. The last name isn't as common as Jones, but it's not Schwarzenegger either. Plenty of people will have this last name, whether they're married to my ex or not. Oh, and it's not tied to any big, important, or particularly rich families, and neither of us gain social standing or clout by taking it. And for those who don't have kids, let me explain why keeping my name is important. I will always be referred to as Mrs. Child's last name, right off the bat. Correcting people is an annoyance I don't need or want. There's also a massive social stigma about single and unmarried moms, and if your last name doesn't match your kids, you get far less respect and you get treated like dirt. Maybe that's a regional thing and isn't true everywhere, but it's true here. I also don't want to go through the legal process because I have 2-year-old twins and the world is exploding. Edit. For those suggesting I change my name and the kids to my pre-marriage name, my former surname was Hoar. It's pronounced how you think. I'm never going back to that, lol. I might consider changing mine and theirs to something completely different, but that's still more hassle than I want to deal with. Valid and reasonable suggestion, and I appreciate it, but I'm too lazy. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. This issue seems to come up a lot. Perhaps you could counter by suggesting changing both your name and the children's to another name of your choosing if it is so important to them. See how your ex like losing that connection to his children since he has no problem asking that of you. I like this option. I plan on having the same last name as my children do. We can keep the one we have, or I can change all of them. Not the a-hole. He's free to take his fiancé's name and solve all of these problems. I really hope she's got a terrible maiden surname that she wants to get rid of too. Not the a-hole. My mom got married, divorced after 5 years, and kept her married name to this day while he has since married 2 others, and no one has asked her to change it. That'd just be weird. He agreed to give you his name when you married. It's rightfully yours. And it sounds like she's jealous already. Yes, this. My mother-in-law was married to my brother-in-law's father first. Took his name and kept it after they divorced. She then married my father-in-law and took his name. When they divorced, she kept that name for like 20 years before she married again and took his name. This time because she can't stand him, went back to her maiden name when they divorced. All of her exes, except the last, have remarried and none of the new wives did this. She's obviously jealous. Not the a-hole. The first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for asking my dad to drive me home in the middle of my engagement dinner? I, 26 female, just got engaged to my fiancé, 32 male, who's the only son my future mother-in-law has, and she's incredibly involved in his adult life. At first, that didn't bother me, as I see it as a good thing that he has a good relationship with his mom, but it started getting worse, with her constantly getting involved in my personal life as well. His family decided to have a small celebration for our engagement, and they invited my family for dinner. I wasn't so comfortable with having a celebration because I felt that my fiancé and I should decide whether we wanted or not. Anyways, I had my mom, dad, and brother attended. We met some of his family members there as well. Things were going fine, till my mother-in-law talked about wedding/honeymoon and stuff like that. My fiancé was talking and I just sat there listening. She then started talking about future grandkids, and this is when I got uncomfortable. I'm living child-free and planning on living child-free all my life, and I think that is mostly because of experiencing a traumatic death of my younger sibling, my sister, who was sick, and I was the closest one to her. She was young, and during her sickness, I felt like I was being a mother to her. My parents knew how much her and I were connected, and her death was so devastating. I will never know what it feels like to lose a child, but losing her felt like a piece of me was gone. I don't want kids, thinking they'd be gone one day, and I'll have to deal with this awful pain for the rest of my life, like how I'm dealing with my sister's death. I already discussed this with my fiancé, but instead of telling her to drop it, he just let her go on. My parents noticed her behavior. My dad told her that I wasn't planning on being a mom, but she just laughed it off and said that I'll change my mind, then started making a toast. She made a toast saying, "To my future grandchildren." I got sick of it. I quietly told my fiancé that I wanted to leave, but he told me to wait. I turned to my dad and asked him if he could drive me home, and my family all got ready to leave. My mother-in-law tried to pressure us into staying, but we left eventually. In about 30 minutes after her guests left, I got a call from my fiancé telling me his mom wants to talk. He gave her his phone, and she blew up on me for walking out and embarrassing her in front of her guests, and brought up the kids' topic and said that she get a say in that. She berated me for 5 minutes, then hung up on me. My fiancé called back, but I ignored him. I went home with my family feeling awful. The whole situation sucks. And I cried, feeling hurt by them and their lack of consideration, and them just steamrolling my decisions as a person like that. Now let's read the top comments. Your mother-in-law is only part of your problem. The bigger problem is that your fiancé supports her and not you. He handed her the phone so she could berate you after leaving a dinner where she insulted you and tried to dictate whether you'd have children. Consider this a preview of what it will be like to be married to her, because you essentially will be. Not the a-hole, but proceed with caution. Your spouse is literally supposed to be your partner, and before all others, for a damned reason. Absolutely not the a-hole. And I'd be really worried your fiancé did not back you up. I don't often say this, but you should consider breaking off the engagement. This does not bode well for the marriage. He let his mother say all these things without taking any action. He let her scold me and even trick me into thinking he wanted to talk to me. Then gave her the phone and she kept berating me for leaving while she didn't stop ignoring my feelings and how that topic is so sensitive to me and very personal. I'm done with her constantly trying to get involved in everything I do. Just because my fiancé lets her, that doesn't mean she has a right to dictate how I live and what decisions I make. She's so selfish and inconsiderate and has no respect for others' feelings. I'm sorry, hun. Your fiancé is being an a-hole too. If he's not able to establish boundaries for her, this wedding should not happen. Not the a-hole. Do not marry this guy. He will always put his mother first, and he will never have your back. If you ignore my advice and stay with him, use long-term birth control, implant or IUD, that can't be tampered with, and maintain your own bank account for your income/savings. Because his mother can't be trusted not to mess with your birth control, and your fiancé will give his mother your savings if she asks for it. OP, listen to this. I don't think you should marry him. Clearly, it's your life. Like, you do you, girl. But if you leave him, let them both know why. It's because of her and him, of course. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for locking my husband out of our bedroom after our wedding reception? The title sounds bad, but hear me out. We were high school sweethearts and met at 14. We dated for 6 years before getting married, and it was clear that he's always been extremely close with his mother. She's always been trying to convince him that we shouldn't be together. Even when we were teens, she was trying to break us up. When we first announced our engagement, she freaked out. She told him, "You won't have a future with her. You're too young, you don't know what you're doing." She even told him he can do better than me. So, the wedding reception came, and it was a small family affair at my older sister's house since she has the yard space for our families to come. She never even came by to help us set up. It was mostly just my family and me. The entire reception was more like a party. It wasn't a traditional walk-down-the-aisle wedding, but our most important family and friends were in attendance. The entire night, my soon-to-be husband sat at the table with his mom. I let it go because I didn't want to have a fight at our wedding. We still did traditional things like sharing vows, taking pictures, cutting the cake, etc. But besides those moments, it was like I barely saw him. When it came to cut the cake, he took the first slice over to his mother. I was upset because the first slice should go to the people actually getting married, but again, I let it slide. I spent my wedding at a table with my best friend and my 14-year-old brother-in-law. The night after the reception, we got into it because it didn't help once with the wedding, and for all the reasons above. And just when we were getting home, he tosses the cake in the fridge without covering it or anything. Here's where I may be an a-hole, because I started asking him to wrap the cake and we got into a huge fight about it, if it was fine or not. I felt just done with the whole day, went into our room and locked the door. I was so mad I eventually ended up falling asleep, and he slept in the couch on our wedding night. I didn't mean to fall asleep, I just wanted some space for a bit. We've been fighting on and off since, and his mother has called me a bridezilla more than once, so I'm starting to doubt myself. Am I the a-hole here for not allowing my new husband into our bedroom on our wedding night? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, annulment. He's already married to his mother. Nailed it. 110%. Get out of this relationship. Speaking from experience, this doesn't get better, and he won't change. This is an everyone sucks here for me. You married a mama's boy at 20 years old. That was your choice. He showed you that he still had a lot of growing to do, and you still married him anyway. What did you expect would happen? When deciding who to marry, you have to consider the in-laws that come with it. Yikes all the way around. You knew this woman for 6 years, Opie? Everyone sucks here. This is not an advice sub, but here's some from an older, happily married lady. Young couples either grow together or grow apart. If you want to be the former and not the latter, get comfortable with saying, I felt hurt when you, and I realized that what I did was hurtful. I am sorry, and I'm going to work hard not to do that again. Because marital problems are not you versus him. They are you and him versus the problem. That is, it's not you versus husband and mother-in-law, but you and husband versus how mother-in-law treats you and how he prioritized the two of you in his life. If you need some space, say it. If you feel insecure, say it. If you feel overlooked, underappreciated, mad, etc., say it. Pettiness, passive-aggressive BS, and silence will murder your relationship, so open up. Yeah, it's scary. But if there is anyone out there whom you can be vulnerable with, it's your spouse. Edit. To quickly address the comments below. People don't change, but they do grow. You are not the person you were 5 years ago and 5 years from now. You look at the person you are today and sometimes shake your head. People also make mistakes. Stupid, careless, obvious mistakes. I am not placing all the blame or putting all the effort on Opie's shoulders. They will both have to learn to give each other grace and the benefit of doubt to grow as a couple together. Please keep in mind that Opie is giving us a few paragraphs on the things about her husband that piss her off the most. Of course, the reaction is, what a S-head. Drop him like he's the beat. Thanks, I'll show myself out. That's how Reddit works. That's not how a good marriage works. Here's a little update from the poster. Edit. I'm overwhelmed by the response, so I'll answer a few questions. Some people have said that I locked him out because of the cake argument. For me, it was the icing on the night, so to speak. Pun not intended. I told him I needed space, and when I went into the room, I stayed on the floor crying until I fell asleep, and I apologized for it the next morning. Locking him out was not my intent, but intention rarely affects the impact of the actions, and I do see that. A few people suggested that he spent the wedding with his mom because she was alone. She wasn't. His father, his brother, his aunts and cousins were all there. She absolutely was not the only member of his family in the guest list. Regardless of how it sounds, I do love him, which is why I agreed to marry him. His mother was against us because we met online. We have lived together for 2 years in a basement apartment. Full bedroom, bath, living room, and kitchen. That's connected to my mom's house, but that's to save money for now. The wedding felt like the next step in a relationship, but a lot of people are telling me we should have waited or to get an annulment or divorce. We have a lot to work on, but I don't think it's that level yet. I'm going to try to catch up with all the comments, but there are so many notifications that when I scroll through them, it glitches and jumps to the top. Now for the last story, am I the a-hole for gifting my step-niece my engagement ring rather than my biological one? I'm 35 and I have an older brother who has 3 kids with his wife. 2 are biologically his. His oldest is Abby, who is 22. He married Abby's mom when Abby was 3 and adopted her when she was 10. Their middle child is Stephanie, age 17. Abby has always been treated as a part of our family, especially since her bio family are very distant. I was only 16 when she became my niece, and she was like a little sister to me. Abby got engaged this year, and I offered her my original wedding ring. The diamonds in it were originally my grandmother's, who gave it to my mother, who gave it to me. I only have boys, so I wanted to give it to Abby to keep the tradition alive. Abby was ecstatic. My sister-in-law and brother were also appreciative of the gift. The issue, I think, stems from my mother. She was disappointed I didn't save the ring for Stephanie. The ring has always gone to the woman that marries first in the family, and I pointed that out to her, but she insisted it should stay in our family. That is, blood relation, and that it wasn't fair to Steph. Abby ended up contacting me and asked if I wanted the ring back, and said she felt bad about accepting it and told me it would be better going to a future daughter-in-law of mine. I insisted she keep it. I'm pretty sure Abby didn't feel suddenly guilty all on her own, but she didn't say why she had a change of heart. I asked my brother what was going on and he said Steph had been jealous and pouty and Abby felt bad. My mom said I should have taken the ring back and that I'm causing unnecessary drama between sisters and has been very I told you so about this. I personally think she has something to do with the whole situation, although she hasn't admitted it. Am I the a-hole for maybe causing my nieces to fight over this? Not the a-hole. Awfully bold of her to claim you are causing drama when she is the one making trouble over it. Opie is probably right on the money. This didn't come from nowhere. Grandma is stirring the pot because she doesn't think of Abby as her grandkid. She said as much when she felt the need to specify our family. Call her out on this BS, Opie. Abby has been a part of your family for 2 decades and your mom is being needlessly cruel. Not the a-hole. This is like saying an adopted child is not a real member of the family, which is pretty reprehensible in my opinion. This, her mother and younger niece are disgusting, though I'll give the niece more of a pass, as she's still young and dumb. So, Opie is not the a-hole, but mom is, and Opie's bro and sister-in-law are too, if they have in any way allowed younger niece to believe she's more special because she's a bio kid. Just ick all around, except for Opie and Abby. Not the a-hole. If your brother got recently married, it'd be one thing. But he raised Abby since she was 3. He's been her father her whole life. I don't think it caused your nieces to fight, but definitely your mom pressuring your other niece and causing tension between everyone. I don't think from what you're saying your mom has enough gusto to say anything to her face. Don't back down because family isn't about blood. It's about a lot of different other things. Not the a-hole.